Let's set up the materials for our Springfield sofa. First I'm gonna import the model. Right. And rename the merge material. Okay, first let's check the dimensions of the sofa. So it should be 243 centimeters long. Let's measure that. And looks like it's about right. Let's move it down to 0. Unhide all. And position it in place. Right up against the wall. And in the center. Okay, let's bring the rug a bit out. Like this. And check our camera view. Looks like we need to step back slightly. Now from the top view I'm gonna isolate my camera and I'm gonna straighten it out by selecting both the target and the camera, right clicking on the move, and right click on this arrow here to bring them both to 0 position on the x-axis. So this way they are in a straight line and perfectly aligned with the center of the room. Alright, let's select the camera and straighten out the verticals by pressing the guess vertical button. Right, maybe let's move the painting slightly up and deselect it. Okay, I'm gonna bring the rug just a bit closer. Good. So let's set up a material for the sofa. Let's open the Google image search. And search for fabric. I'm going to search for large images. Okay, so here's our original reference. It's a plain gray fabric. So I'm looking to find a pattern that I can use to create a large texture. Okay, how about this one? Or maybe this here, or this one. I like this one here. Let's copy the image, go to Photoshop, create new file and paste. Okay. Let's select all and copy. Now I'm going to increase the canvas size. And paste the image in the corners. Alright, let's merge everything down. And using the clone stamp tool, let's get rid of these weird mirrored areas along the seams. Okay, now let's try to use the offset filter to check the seams along the edges. And get rid of those as well. Okay, perfect. Let's increase the contrast a bit. And let's save it as, okay, first let's check the image size. It's a bit too large. Let's set it to 2500. And let's save the image as fabric bump. Okay, and now for the color, I'm going to create a new layer and fill it with a medium gray color. Okay, let's reduce the opacity slightly, maybe like this. And save the image. Fabric gray. Maybe let's find a nice pattern for the pillows. Let's look for a pattern. Okay, maybe this one here. Or something different. Maybe this. Copy it, go to Photoshop, paste over your image and scale it up. Alright, let's change the blending modes. Actually, let's set it to normal and copy the background layer and paste it over this one here and just reduce the opacity like this. And let's save it as below. Actually, I'm going to change the colors by changing my hue, something more blue. Like that. Let's save it as below. Alright, let's go back to our scene. Isolate the sofa. And let's create a new material. Let's name it fabric gray. So here I'm going to set up a fall off map in my diffuse slot and use this texture here. Okay, first let's assign it to sofa. Check the scale. Scale looks about right. Alright, so let's reduce the blurring to 0.5. Go up and copy this material to the second slot as well, or this texture. And for the second slot I'm going to reduce the amount of texture to blend it with white to 50. Right, now adjust the fall of curve to create a slightly lighter edge for the material. Good. Now let's move down to my bump slot and set up the fabric bump map in here. Let's reduce the blur to 0.2, maybe 0.3. And reduce the bump amount to maybe 10. Okay, let's see how that looks. Looks alright. Now let's set up another material for the pillows. And let's increase the bump slightly. Okay. And copy the material to another slot. And rename it to fabric pattern. Okay, and for this material I'm going to change my diffuse map to this texture here. And drag and drop on these pillows. I think the pattern is a bit too busy, maybe let's look for something simpler. Like stripe pattern. Maybe let's use this zebra, something like that. Okay, let's select this image, copy, go over here and paste. Okay, let's scale it up. Okay, maybe like this. And just resave over the image of pillow. Okay. Okay, so let's double check our UVs. Open the unwrap modifier. And let's make sure our pillow element fits inside the box. Like this. Okay. And same for this one here. Just fit it inside this box here. This way the texture will not have these seams we have right now. And hide all and re-render. It looks pretty good. Maybe let's render it out at a higher resolution so we can see the detail better. Let's increase the resolutions to 2000 by 1.5. Now let's render a small region over here. It looks pretty good up close. For these pillows, it looks like we need to adjust the scale of the side strip. call it scale it down. And the same for this below here. Select the elements and scale them down a bit. Right. And so that's it for the Springfield sofa. Okay. Let's close the group and hide it. Now let's merge in our Faubourg sofa. Okay, so here it is. Okay, let's group it. I select the selection and double check the size. So it should be 2 meters and 40 centimeters long. Let's see how long it is. Scale it down to fix the size. So to 40. And close enough. Move it up. Unhide all. Okay, let's just exit the isolate mode and position it the same place. Okay, good. Okay, now let's set up materials for it. Let's try this simple basic white fabric first. Okay, so the legs are black painted metal. Let's create the material for legs. Faubourg legs and set up black diffuse color. Some weak reflections and blur them a bit. Okay, enable Fresnel and set to 4. And this looks about right. Okay, so that's the legs. Let's freeze them. And for the rest, we're gonna create a new white fabric material. Okay. Let's check this image here. Okay, copy it. Create new image in Photoshop. Let's desaturate it. And try the offset filter. Looks like it's pretty much tileable, so that's good. Let's save it. PNG file. Fabric bump 2. Okay, and let's set up our diffuse color first. I'm going to create a mix. Okay, let's rename it. And use this image as the mix amount. And so let's increase the tiling. Maybe 40 by 40. Alright. Reduce the blur to 0.2 to keep some of the detail. And let's create a mix of two white colors. Let's say 230 by 210. Maybe make the second one slightly beige. Okay. And now I'm going to change my diffuse map to fall off. And copy the mix to the second slot as well. The same technique to create a slightly lighter edge. Okay. Now I want to create a different material for the pillows. Maybe let's use the gray fabric we used earlier. Alright, and for this white fabric we just need to set up our bump map. So here it is, and set it to 40 by 40 as well. Okay, and reduce the value to something like 10, 15. So let's exit isolation mode and render and see how it looks. Okay, I think I want a different color for the pillows. And it looks like, since I haven't set up my displacement modifier for the sofa, you can't see the displacement wrinkles. So let's fix those two things. Okay, first let's set up our displacement. Open the group. Actually, it looks like it's fine. And set up V-Ray displacement modifier. This way you can mess with your material, change it to different one, and you'll still have the correct displacement. So it's better to use V-Ray displacement modifier in this case. Okay, so where was our displacement map? And here it is. Okay. Let's leave the settings as they are. Maybe let's reduce the edge length to 3 to make it a bit better in quality. And let's copy this gray fabric and rename it to fabric dark blue. And I'm going to change the colors for this. Okay, so fabric gray. Let's create a new layer and fill it with a dark blue color, like this. Alright, merge down. Maybe bring the contrast up. And let's save it. Okay, back to max and change the texture to this dark blue. And let's mix it not with white, but something like this. Looks good. And let's render. Okay, so since we have displacement now, it's taking a bit longer to render, and looks like I forgot to set up my dynamic memory limit. So if you have a lot of RAM, you can increase it to match it. So for example, I have 24 gigabytes, I'm gonna set it to 20 gigabytes, and it will speed up the rendering quite a bit. Okay, and I forgot to assign the material for my pillows. I think it looks pretty good. Right, let's move on to the next sofa. Let's merge our Edwards. Okay, isolate it, and let's check the size. So it should be 1 meter 44 centimeters long. It's a bit too large. And move it down. And let's position it in the center. So it's quite a bit smaller than the other two sofas. Let's scale down the painting slightly to match it in size. Like that. And let's isolate the model. Okay. First, let's create this basic dark black leather. Let's go to CG textures and look for leather. Here are some leather photos. Okay, let's use this one. Let's open the large image. I'm gonna invert it to make the seams deeper, and I'm gonna desaturate it like this. Okay, let's bring up the contrast. and save it as leather bump. Okay, and we can also probably use it as the reflection map. Right, now let's create the diffuse map for our sofa. Let's create a new layer and fill it with a very dark gray and reduce the opacity a bit. Maybe like this. And let's save it. Okay, now back to 3D Max and create a new V-Ray material. Let's name it leather black and set up the diffuse map first. Okay, then check it in viewport. And we need to increase the tiling quite a bit. Maybe 5 by 5 or even 10 by 10. Okay, like that. Let's set up the reflection map now. I'm gonna use the leather bump and set it to 10 by 10 as well. Okay, now let's reduce the reflection glossiness to give the leather some shine. Maybe 0.75 would be something close. Enable Fresnel and let's set it to 3. So it looks like our reflection map is a bit too strong, and we can reduce it by reducing the reflect amount to maybe 50 or even 35. And let's copy the map to the bump slot. Alright, let's set exit the isolation mode and render. Looks like we might need to blur the reflection slightly more. Maybe make them a bit weaker as well. Yep, they are definitely more blurry than our render. So let's reduce it to 0.68 maybe, or even 65. Maybe make them slightly stronger. And I'm gonna reduce the blurring for the bump map. Okay. Okay, so that's a basic black leather material for this sofa, and I'm gonna create another one just to show you how it's done. Let's make a worn leather material. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open this cavity map we rendered out from ZBrush. Alright. Now let's fill it with some leather material. I'm gonna make this lighter, colorize it a bit. Maybe something dark gray brown like this. Okay. Copy everything. Move to this texture and paste. Okay, let's paste a few more times. Let's merge them together and maybe scale smaller. Okay. Duplicate the layer a couple of times. Right. Looks like there are some weird seams going on. Okay, maybe they won't be visible. Right, now copy the background layer and paste it above our leather. Okay, and maybe let's try some blending modes. Okay, like this. Color burn and reduce the opacity quite a bit. Right. Let's look at some other textures. Let's take this one. Now let's download the large image. Okay, let's desaturate it first. Increase the contrast. And copy it. Right, let's paste over our texture. And change the blending mode. Okay, like this. And copy it. Let's use the clone stamp. To get rid of those seams. Right. And let's copy it for the sides as well. And let's create a new layer. And using a black brush, maybe with lower opacity. Okay, very soft brush. Zoom in. And paint over the bottom spots. Right, let's move on. And let's reduce the opacity of this layer slightly, like this. Right. Then I'm gonna go to my cavity layer and I'm gonna blur it a bit. Okay. Let's save the image. And go to 3D Max. Okay, and let's change our diffuse to this new texture we just painted. Okay, and reset the tiling to 1 by 1. Now let's render and see how it looks. I think the reflections are a bit too strong. Let's bring them down a bit. And let's also create a reflection glassiness map from this. Okay, Shift, Control, copy, and paste, and reduce the saturation. Okay. Now with curves, make it brighter. And blur it a bit. And we can reduce the size of this image. Let's save it as glassiness map. Okay, so back to max. First, let's reduce our reflections slightly. Maybe like that. Okay, let's wait for the texture to save. And now we can set up our reflection glossiness map. I'm gonna reduce it to 50 maybe. Even less, maybe 20. Right. 40. Okay. And let's check out how it looks. Right, so let's blur the reflections a bit more. And let's adjust our diffuse color slightly. I'm gonna bring the contrast up a bit. So copy everything and paste. And let's use the curves to maybe make it a bit more contrasty. I'm gonna save as JPG just to make a faster save. And change the diffuse color to our new texture. Right, and re-render. Looks pretty good. Okay, a bit of a glitch over here. Just clone it out. Resave, and that should be fixed. Okay, so that's basically it for the materials. Now you just need to set up your high quality render settings and render out the final images. So that's pretty simple. To increase the quality, you first set your output size, maybe, I don't know, 1600 by the long edge. Now you need to increase the DMC sampler max subdivs, try maybe 16, and enable anti-aliasing filter. I'm gonna use Michel Naturali, and reduce the blur to 0.2 to make it a bit crisper. Now for the lighting, let's change the radiance map preset to medium, and increase the light cache samples to 1600. Okay, maybe let's enable pre-filter and set it to 50 as well. Right, now let's adjust our noise threshold, 0.08 maybe, and let's reduce the adaptiveness to 0.7. This will make it less noisy. Okay, and that's about it basically.